Reddit. Entitled parents. My boyfriend's entitled cousin tried to stop us from sleeping in the same room. In his home. We'll call the cousin Karen, her husband Todd, and their kids. There had been a terrible fire in Karen and Todd's home, and while they and their kids were unharmed, their possessions were destroyed. They did have insurance, but claimed they couldn't afford a hotel room till things got sorted out. Normally my boyfriend's parents would have allowed them to stay at their place, but they were out of town and wouldn't return until a couple days later. And they knew better than to let this family have free reign over their house. Boyfriend's sister was suddenly unwell and unable to have guests at her home. I do not blame her one bit, I would have done the same. So the responsibility to be there for family fell squarely on my boyfriend's shoulders. He agreed to let them stay in his guest bedroom till his parents got back. I tried to talk him out of it, but my man is kind and caring to a fault. It's what I love about him the most, but sometimes it's also the one thing I wish I could change about him. Anyway, I had been out of town for a few days, and boyfriend picked me up from the airport, and we went straight to his place. Karen and Todd acted happy to see me. Of course they did. What choice did they have? After a surprisingly quiet and peaceful dinner, we decided to go to bed. This is how the conversation that followed went. Boyfriend. Karen, OP and I are going to bed. If the kids are going to watch TV, just make sure they keep the volume down. Karen. What do you mean, you and her? You can't sleep in the same room. Not while my kids are here. What? Karen. You can live a sinful lifestyle all you want, but I don't want my kids exposed to it. I don't want to have to explain to them why a man and a woman who are not husband and wife are sleeping in the same bed. It'll be a bad influence on them. Boyfriend. You're in my home, Karen. You can't enforce your rules here. Just go to bed and keep your nose out of where it doesn't belong. Besides, it's not like we're ducking in front of your kids. I don't see how this would affect them. Todd. She's right, you know. You really shouldn't be sleeping together if you're not married. But if you're going to do it anyway, you should just go to her place. Boyfriend. I have a better idea. Why don't you go pack your stuff and get the heck out of my apartment? Karen. Wiping off invisible tears. How could you say that? We're family. Why would you try to traumatize our kids with your sinful lifestyle? You're just being cruel. Our kids are being raised in a godly home and I'm protecting them from sin. Boyfriend, now raising his voice, I haven't started to get cruel yet. Just pack your things and go stay in a hotel room. Todd, being the slightly more sensible one, knew that my boyfriend meant business, and he somehow got his wife to go to the guest room. He then apologized to my boyfriend and spewed some kind of nonsense about his wife being upset due to recent events, the fire, and that she didn't know what she was saying as an excuse for her behavior. My boyfriend told him they could stay, but to remember that he wasn't going to be pushed around in his own home. Later on, as we were busy engaging in our favorite activity, my worst side had the urge to scream loud enough for the entitled family to hear me. But as I didn't want to muddy the waters anymore, I decided against it. She should have gone for it. Encounter with entitled parents in the Pediatric emergency room. This happened yesterday. My 3-year-old daughter was diagnosed with bacterial pneumonia, and we ended up in the emergency room because she was struggling to breathe. Pneumonia is very serious. She was put on a nebulizer and O2, and given an IV for more meds while we waited for a room to open up in the pediatric ICU. The emergency room was pretty full. The rooms are small, and you share them. There is a curtain that divides them. There are no doors, just another curtain. Around 4 p.m., a family arrives with mom, dad, 5-year-old daughter. The mom briefly looks in on my side of the room and could see my toddler laying in the bed, hooked to machines with an IV. It's obvious that this isn't a stub toe. So I can't help but hear the parents explaining why their kid is in the ER. Stomach pain. Meanwhile, the kid is asking for something to eat. She sounds quite perky. Parents insist she has a kidney infection. Whatever. I don't know her history. I'm not interested. So my daughter was given a steroid through her nebulizer to help open her airways. Her O2, which they wanted a 90 or above, kept dipping down into the low 80s, making an alarm sound. The nebulizer makes some noise, and the side effect is hyperactivity, so my extremely sick kid was medically wired as heck. Within 30 minutes of arriving, the entitled parents call for a nurse and ask for a private room because their daughter needs to rest somewhere quiet. Meanwhile, their daughter was blasting Ryan's toy review. Shout out to a YouTube channel way more popular than this one. Blasting Ryan's toy review from her tablet and loudly demanding chocolate chip cookies and milk. The nurse explains that there is no private rooms in the emergency room. My daughter then starts having a coughing fit, which is scary as her O2 drops off and she chokes until she vomits. I had two nurses trying to help by suctioning her and patting her back. I'm trying to help her. My daughter is turning blue. I hear the entitled mother ask the nurse, "How long are we going to be expected to listen to that?" Then they start playing with the lights. The room has a switch to control the lights on each side, and then a master switch to cut all the lights. My daughter is afraid of the dark. The entitled dad cuts the lights for the room, making it quite dark with the curtain over the door drawn. I tell my husband to turn on the lights on our side, which he does. The entitled mom calls her nurse to complain that it's too bright for her little girl to sleep. It's 5 p.m. The nurse explained that they are welcome to shut off the lights on their side, but they have to leave our side alone. They complain a bit about how ill their daughter is. Meanwhile, my daughter is drowning in her own lungs, which I'm sure they know, as you can hear everything. Then the nurse leaves and they shut the lights off for the entire room again. My husband immediately turns ours on and calls through the curtain that they need our lights on. Silence. Our nurse comes in to attend to my daughter's IV and they attempt to get her to force us to have the lights off. Our nurse basically tells them to knock it off. Then they start pushing for more space. They attempt to push our chair away where my husband is sitting. They put their chair way over on our side of the room, pushing the curtain into our faces, essentially. My husband pushes it back. They call and complain, rinse and repeat. Finally, a room in the pediatric ICU opens up, and we are told that we would be admitted within an hour. Entitled parents complain that they asked for a private room first. The nurse explains that we are being admitted, not being given a private room in the ER. The entitled parents demand that they be admitted first because their daughter is so much sicker. The nurse says that there is no reason for their daughter to be admitted as she is just constipated, and as soon as she poops, she will be free to go. The parents start freaking out. So that's my story of how the parents of a little girl who needed to poop felt they were more important than a little girl with pneumonia. Edit. First of all, my daughter is doing much better. Thanks for all the well wishes. Second, many of you say you would have caused some sort of scene or would have acted aggressively or called them out on their behavior. I worked in an emergency room for 4 years. Unruly parents were often removed from the emergency room without their child. I kept my head down and took it because the care of my child was receiving to keep her heart beating was more important. Imagine that. My daughter was never in danger. Her nurses were attentive, helpful, friendly, responsive. I would have taken whiplashes from Satan himself if it meant that my daughter getting care. The petty complaints and power play coming from the other side of the curtain didn't affect my child at all. The nurses had their number, they were handling it. Those are the worst people. I want bad things to happen to them. Entitled parents try to kick me out of my room. I'm currently taking classes away from home, and since I don't like the idea of living out of my car, I rented a room at a nearby bed and breakfast that houses students. Great owners, amazing rooms with private bathrooms, fast Wi-Fi, free use of state-of-the-art kitchen, and above all else, affordable. Of course, because the place I'm staying at is a bed and breakfast first, the owners request that I stay flexible during tourist seasons, which means I keep things at a ready-to-move status. Tourist patrons pay way more to stay here, so they take priority over room choice. Thankfully, Tourist season only lasts from September 1st to October 22nd, and from February 1st to the 18th, and doesn't come without compensation. The owners have temporary rooms in their private residence that they call the retreat, set up for students who have to move out for tourists, as well as contracts stating that if any items left in our rooms are damaged or stolen by tourists, they will be fixed/replaced. Well, it's tourist season again. Thanks to the nearby town's Winter and Valentine's festivals that happen every February. I've been moved once so far, but it wasn't too bad. The owner called all the students into the common room to explain the room situation for the coming days. Alright then, housemate 1 and housemate 2. You're going to stay the night up at the retreat. OP, you're the lucky one who gets to stay this time. Mind your manners and just do what you do. Later that day, I'm playing on my Xbox when I'm caught off guard as my door swings open and a family of 3 pour in. The father sets down a couple of luggage bags while the kid starts running around the room. The mother takes one look at me and says, "I was told that you would be moved out by now. Why are you still here?" I politely tell her that they may have the wrong room and that mine was not selected for patron use. That's ridiculous. I specifically requested this room. You better leave now, or I'll be having a strongly worded conversation with the owner. I asked her to give me a second as I call up the owner. She gives me a, whatever. The owner picks up, and I double check with him about my room. He confirms that they have the wrong room, and that he'll be there shortly to work it out. I relay this information to the mother, who just doesn't accept this. This is stupid. I asked for this room, I paid the fee, so now you got to leave. Now. The kid finally notices my Xbox. Awesome. We have an Xbox while I stay here? Can I play it, Mom? Please? The mom agrees, totally ignoring the fact that she has no right to allow her child to use someone else's things. I keep the controller away from the kid and say that if I'm leaving, I'll be taking my Xbox with me. Her brat did not like that answer and began to wail like a banshee. Now look what you've done. You've made my baby cry. He's going to be in a bad mood for the rest of our stay now. You had better hope the owner is forgiving, because he's getting an earful when he shows up. All this is going on, and not a word has been breathed from the dad. He just stands behind his wife, arms crossed with a mildly discomforted look on his face. The owner finally shows up, and it goes like this. "Hello folks, sorry for the mix-up. Your room is taken up by this punk, we know. But this is the room I asked for, and it's the room we're getting, or we'll find somewhere else." "Ma'am, your bill states that you asked for room 4. This is room 5. I've already made the arrangements for room 4 to be used, so if you could please just follow me, we'll get your family set up." "No. This is the room that has an Xbox video game entertainer." Yeah, she called it that. "And my son wants to use it while we stay here. This room or nothing." You'll be hard-pressed to find another place with vacancy during the festival. Besides, it's just down the hall and is just as nice as this room. Does it have an Xbox? I don't think. Then it's this room, or we take the Xbox with us. I interject, saying that no one is taking or using my Xbox without my permission. Why do you even have this thing anyway? You look like an adult, act like one, and quit playing childish video games. Ma'am, it's room 4 or nothing. And I can assure you, it's not going to be easy to find a new place to stay. Even if you did, it wouldn't be as nice as here. Fine, I'll take it, but don't expect a review over 3 stars. She stomps out of the room, wailing brat and pack mule husband in tow. The owner gives me a yeesh look before apologizing and closing the door. That was 2 days ago, and they're still down the hall from me for another 2 days. That kid has had at least 4 audible temper tantrums since then. God have mercy. Subscribe and like. See you next time, friends.